Hello, my boils, my ghouls, and my zools. Welcome back to Kalashkamas. So, today we are going to be talking about the SLR-95 from Arsenal of Bulgaria. Let's get it out of the way, obviously. I have dropped those microphones, and yeah, I think this sound is a little more desirable, so we'll keep trying. But yeah, I will admit, man, these lav mics that I couldn't get they were just too hot. Just too hot, man. They, just couldn't get the level down enough. Sucks. Happens. Today, as I said, we're talking about the SLR-95. Now, to really talk about this rifle, I'll just tell you a little bit about my story with this particular one. So, if you are not aware, this is a rifle by Arsenal. These are Bulgarian. Now, what is the big deal about these as opposed to, say, like a SAM 5, a SAM 7, something like that? Well, these were ban era. This is literally SLR-95. You can kind of tell when it came in the country. This one in particular is a 1995. You can actually see on the serial number. Very clean. It's very clean. When I bought this, there was a little bit of a story behind it. So I had just been going to my gunsmith as normal, bringing, guns over there, have them work on them, blah, 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 blah. And one day I come in and I see this guy sitting under the glass and I'm like, huh. Now, mind you, my gunsmith is not primarily an AK smith. The AK specific stuff that you need to know, that's like stuff I handle. But when, I need some like, milling or, from a, tool I don't have or something like that, that's when I go to him. So I see it there for a couple months and it was on consignment, I believe. Now, what's interesting about this is, I kept seeing it, and I was like, man, that is a really good deal. I cannot believe anybody hasn't got that yet. And at the time, I was still, building an AK collection, I suppose you could say. And I just kept seeing this, and I was like, I don't really need another 7.62 rifle right now. I need another 5.45 or a 5.56 rifle. At the time, primarily, I was really trying to get a 5.45 rifle because I didn't own one at the time. So, I kept seeing it. And one day I just inquired about it. I was like, you know what? I keep seeing that thing. Obviously, it ain't getting any hits. So let's check it out. Why not? So my good buddy Tyler over at Liberty Gunsmithing in Austin, Texas, he pulls this guy out of the glass for me, and first thing I do is, ooh, that's a pretty stiff safety. That sucker feels like it's never actually been adjusted. And then I go, oh, that was very, very, very nice, but huh. So I pop the top cover and I'm like, dude, there's like no marks on the hammer face. Like, is this a brand new trigger or something in here? And so he gives me the story. He's like, so older guy brought it in and he just hadn't been shooting it. He bought this guy in the 90s, and my gunsmith Tyler, he didn't really know much about the particular rifle, just a consignment. And so, I tell him, oh wow, that's cool, man. That's some pretty old Arsenal right there. I say, hey, this thing, it looks like incredible condition. Actually, even the rails and the safety scratch. The safety scratch actually wasn't there when I bought it. And I'm like, dude, this thing is so fucking clean. So my first questions are, obviously it has been converted from its sporter stock configuration. But I asked, is this a brand new trigger and a finish or something like that? And he goes, no. So old guy brought it in, and he said he bought it back in the 90s brand new, and he shot, maybe half a mag or something like that, and stuck it in the closet, and it lived there its entire life. And I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. You're telling me this is an essentially nearly unfired SLR-95. And he's like, yeah, he said it was just basically a test mag. So, and he said he didn't even get all the way through the mag. And then he put it away, said it was just gassed a little heavy for him. And, you know, he just had a gun collection, kind of forgot about it. So, I was like, wow, man, that is incredible. Okay. So I'm like, wow, okay. You know, let me think that over. And he's like, wait a minute. Here, let me sweeten this deal for you because it does come with a few things. And then he pulls up a couple ammo cases and came with 1,000 rounds of ammo, or actually, excuse me, it was about 1,300 rounds of ammo, a bunch of blister packs of East German training ammo, a East German pouch that that had a couple magazines in there, and then another East German pouch that had the entire full complete cleaning kit in there. And big bonus, so all the ammo, there was Wolf in there, there was some Tula, and about 500 rounds of banned Norinco, AP Norinco, man. So I was like, you have got to be fucking with me, dude. Oh, by the way, it did come with a couple other things. Actually, one of the really neat ones, it was a HK mag coupler for AKs, but it only works with steel magazines. So, you know, I don't use it too much because I generally use the Bulgarian polymer magazines, but, you know, I own plenty of Steely 7.62 mags. So I was like, I'll tell you what, dude. I don't want to, like, you know, I'm not asking for no like 6-month layaway, but if you'll take what I got on me right now and let me come back when I get paid and pay this thing off, I'll take it. And he's like, hey man, you're a friend, I trust you, so yeah, let's do that. And so I walked home with it a couple weeks later. And yeah, I, you know, immediately took it over to like an indoor range just to check it out, because at the time I lived right next to an indoor range. And yeah, you know, just gave it the, because it was actually already zeroed, and the zero wasn't terrible. So yeah, I just, you know, giving it the quick little, let's see, you know, and I was just looking at it at 25, and then I was looking at it at 50 and 100, and man, this thing was gassed really nicely. It was fucking just, you know, I mean, it's a milled rifle, so, you know, it definitely helps soak up the recoil, but, you know, it's got pretty stereotypical military gassing, honestly. Kind of heavy. And I was like, dude, that's a fucking trooper right here. That's a fucking trooper. So yeah, came away pretty good on that one. Man, I remember the last time I tried to disassemble this thing, that was fucking gnarly, dude, because you know, like I said, barely any rounds through this thing. I mean, still to this day, I've only taken it to 2 matches, and they weren't big matches, you know, no like 500, 600 round matches. I took it to a 3-gun match and used it about half the time, so it only got about 2 magazines that day. Only other match I have taken it to was a Texas Kalashnikov one time, and you know, that's less than 100 rounds. And then okay, I guess if you can count Kalashmas, I went to the last Kalashmas and brought this guy, and well, I mean, did run at least 1 drum through it that day. I think it maybe got like 300 rounds that day, 200 rounds. That's a, you know, that was just a hangout event, so I wasn't trying to like blow through all my fucking ammo, but I did bring a case with me. But yeah, I only shot maybe 200 rounds, 300 rounds or something that day. So anyhow, that's the story behind this. I guess when I'm finished shooting here, we'll go back and talk a little, you know, Bulgarian rifle history. So let's get it. All right, y'all. You've definitely seen me hit this bay before quite a bit. This is my favorite bay at TSA. So here is the course of fire. Now, mind you, it's going to look a little funky. We're just going to keep our shots between the sticks and shoot carefully, but this is the course of fire. Right here is the 100. We're going to hit any steel with the 100. We are going to jog up. We have 3 targets over here on the right, 3 targets over here on the left.
So we're going to engage those three so that we have a switch back over here. Excuse me, at least a transition over here. And then we are going to run up to the 40 here, and we are going to hit a steel again. Pretty simple course of fire, just big Dorcas Malorcas. Yeah, so that's the course of fire. Doing a little bit of movement exercise mostly. Really today I mostly came out to zero another rifle and film for y'all a little bit here with this SLR-95. So yeah, take this stuff with a grain of salt, because gotta be honest, injured my ankle a little bit, so can't run full on, but we're gonna give it a little try, and if it starts hurting, we'll just start zeroing. How about that? I mean, no reason to fuck myself up over a YouTube channel. All right, let's go. Yeah, you gotta really give it some oomph. Like I said, it's not been fired too much and probably could use a little bit of polish on the rails and whatnot. So anyway, we're gonna start on the inside so that we have to pull the rifle out. All right. Yeah, let's start on safe. All right. Meep. Got it. That steel is not dinging anymore. Gotta slow down here. There we go. Meep. Hi. Goddamn. There we go. We might not have enough ammo for this run. There we go. There we go. Meep. Meep.
All right, so now you know where I got this guy. Let's talk a little bit about the history behind this thing. I'm not going to go through the entire history of Bulgarian rifles. We'll touch on that a little bit. But the main thing is I wanted to talk about this rifle because it's somewhat of a rare rifle at this point, but it's got a bit of an interesting story behind it. So let's get it. The story of these guys would actually start back in 1958. Arsenal of Bulgaria, not under the name Arsenal, has been around since the 1800s, but in 1956 is when they started small arms production. Prior to that, they had been making, artillery shells, pieces for artillery, gas masks, gunpowder, a few things. And still to this day, they actually produce other items other than small arms and artillery, because they do still produce small arms and artillery. They actually, fireworks is one of the things they produce. Parts for CNC machines, they actually have a pretty sprawling business. It's, they manufacture machines and parts for machines, as well as some chemical, fireworks. just a few years ago, you might have read in the news about an explosion at the Arsenal factory. That actually was an explosion at the fireworks factory, so. As far as I know, I believe in that same factory, they also produce 155s. I think. Might have to correct me on that, but yeah, it's fireworks factory exploded. Must have been a fun time. 1956, they start production on their small arms, which would have been an AK. At the time, this would have been the, they were developing exactly the same as Russia was, and by 1958 had released this rifle. It was the Bulgarian Type 3. Now, by the 1960s, this designation would change with production at the Kazanlak factory. The designation would become the AKK, AK Kazanlak. The naming convention in Bulgaria is not dissimilar to the naming conventions in Russia. You had Avtomat, Kalashnikov, Kazanlak, not too crazy. Later on, they would actually export this model under the name ARF, ARF. And that is where you start seeing the, designation of AR with Bulgarians. That wouldn't come till much later, into the era we're actually talking about today. So you had the fall of communism prior to the fall of the wall. So, a lot of people associate the end of communism in Soviet countries as the fall of the wall. Some countries, this had started happening prior. Bulgaria, this was during 1988, 1989 or so. Pretty much universal for all Soviet countries is when it started to collapse. However, by the 90s, they were largely transitioning way away from that into just standard traditional capitalism and trade. So rather than the state capitalism that they had worked off of before. So by 1992, they had started, prior, they had been exporting rifles for a civilian market. Can't find any numbers on that. I searched high and low. I can't find any numbers. Can't even find who was importing them prior to the 90s into the US, but there are a few of them in the US here and there. Many other countries got them though. Many other countries, including many regions in Yugoslavia. So, that may or may not have had some legality, and you are finding a lot of those on the market right now, actually, in parts kit form. So, anyhow, by 1992, Arsenal had started production of their civilian export line, and that would have been the SA-93. The SA-93 started production in 1992, released in 1993, follows that similar naming convention. You have semi-automatic 1993. Very similar naming convention. They produced the SA-93 from 1993 to 1994. 1994, we had the assault weapons ban in the U.S. Now, the U.S. market was a huge market for Arsenal of Bulgaria. You had a few different importers. I will have to go to my notes here. You had Dominion Investment Group, Dunav International Trading, and Sentinel Arms. Now, these importers had been importing the SA-93, and by 1994, assault weapons ban was coming down. At that time, the rifles themselves under that designation had actually already started to change. Arsenal rifles in the U.S. can get extremely confusing with their designations, and I hope this video can alleviate a little bit of that confusion. So, 1994 comes around, you have the assault weapons ban, and they are still selling the SA-93, SA-94 in a sporter configuration. It came in with some cool features, 100% Bulgarian rifle, 16-inch barrel, obviously 7.62 by 3.9. We did not have 5.45 or 5.56 variants of Arsenal rifles yet. You had a 45-degree gas block, which was very cool, and this was derivative of that ARF and the AR, which is Bulgaria's military designation for their rifles, you know, automatic rifle. And then you would see AR, these days, AR-M1. Not crazy, but you would see the exports coming in under the ARF designation. Arf, arf. Now the SA-93, as I said, 7.62, came in with a 16-inch barrel, had a wood thumbhole stock, and I've seen a couple of these things around. I'm not entirely sure if it's like a you know, a wood stain or a wood lacquer. It appears to be a brown wood lacquer over the wood. So they're very distinguishable by their brown furniture if they are still in their original configuration. However, by 1995 is when you had the designation SLR-95. This particular version is a 1995, as denoted by its serial number. And this would have come in with a blonde wood furniture set with a thumbhole stock. It would have not had a sling loop. It would have had a different gas block. It would have retained a 45-degree gas block. However, the SLR-95 did come with a 45-degree as well as a 90-degree gas block. So this particular version has the 90-degree gas block. It would have been compliance parted. So front sights, the you know, ban era shit. You have front sights. You had your your gas block, your sling loop retainer, your thumb hole stock, obviously. You know, you had some ban era parts on there, and this one would have been denoted by its blonde furniture. You did have the later versions. You had a SLR-95 and an SLR-96. You can denote those two by their furniture. The SLR-96 would have come in with black synthetic furniture and would have also had those same confusing set of features with a 45-degree gas block or a 90-degree gas block. However, with the SLR-95 and you know, subsequent SLR-96, you did have two different barrel lengths available. You had the standard 16.3 inch or a 20 inch. Pretty cool. So, you know, if you were trying to make yourself kind of a shortened RPK out of one of these, you did have a heavier barrel profile. However, you know, you were on a milled receiver, so you would, you know, have to build a very cool rifle out of that. Sorry. Other thing is, when it comes to the gas block, the reason why the gas block would have been changed out is due to the bayonet lugs. A very, very confusing part of owning an SLR-95 is its many, many, many sub-designations. This particular one would have been known as an SLR-95 MB. The MB standing for muzzle brake. Now, big reason for the compensator and not a flash hider would be due to one of their largest markets, California. California banned flash hiders, specifically flash hiders. So these came in with, you know, 50 state compliant features. So unfortunately, you got a compensator. Oh no. I know some people prefer a flash hider, but me, flatten that shot, baby. I like that it came with a compensator, and frankly, it's actually a very effective compensator. I'm not aware of the entire history of things like 922 and the compliance during the ban era because I was a child during the ban era. So I don't know if you've always had to weld it, but you know, this one was not welded. It was literally just pinned. So pretty interesting. They did come in with threaded and non-threaded barrels, so that's also where I get a little confused because, you know, these days they got to be threaded for import purposes. But, you know, it's, you know, you're going to have to actually honestly talk to a builder about all that compliance stuff. They know way more about compliance than I do. It's, fuck this moth. I just noticed that motherfucker. I got a bunch of fucking valuable surplus in here. Get over here, you piece of shit. Get over here. I will fucking shoot you. Now, went through the importers, DIG, Dominion Investment Group, DUNAV International Trading, DIT, a lot of people know them by, and Sentinel. Now, these were coming in mainly under DIG. Now, interestingly enough, this one is obviously a DIG, and you can denote when these arsenals are made in Bulgaria when they say made in Bulgaria. If it was not made in Bulgaria, it will not say made in Bulgaria, and we're getting to that. So why would they not be made in Bulgaria if they're Bulgarian rifles? As I said, we're getting to that. The owner of DIG died. You know, I was able to confirm it was a heart attack, but the story was that he was an attorney. I was not able to actually confirm that one, but I was able to confirm that his wife did take over the company and attempt to keep it going, and in an attempt to keep it going, formed in a partnership with Intrac. Now, Intrac is a pretty well-known importer from the 90s, was involved in building AKs in the 90s. Very, very, very early, very pioneering company. Now, DIG continued to import rifles. You had the SLR-95 and the SLR-96 from 1994 to 1998. And, you know, you were getting 100% Bulgarian-made rifles minus their compliant parts. Now, as I said earlier, you know, with the SA-93 and the SLR-95 and SLR-96, you had a variety of features under the exact same designation, which is where it gets very, very confusing for some people. They're like, what do I have? What do I have? Now, some people say that SA-93s only had 45-degree gas blocks. They did come in with both. Now, primarily the SLR-95s and 96 did come with 90-degree gas blocks. However, you will also find both, as I said. You will find wood and synthetic furniture. Now, the other interesting thing about that is you'll also find multiple barrel profiles as well. You know, same designation. So, you know, you'll find some that are more of the AKK, which was the Bulgarian Type 3, you know, or modernized AR, you know, AR M1, which are more distinct as they are modernized versions of the original AKK. These SLRs, you know, you may have also heard the designation SAR from Bulgaria. Now, those SARs, those were not allowed in the country. At the time, you were only able to get SLRs. So, highly coveted rifles. There are some in the country. People have been able to get them. However, semi-automatic rifle, SAR. However, you actually did have another designation that some people actually were able to successfully get a couple in the country. However, they were not allowed, in all technicality. You had the, yeah, that's what it was, the BARR, the bolt action repeating rifles. Yeah, that's what it was. So, yeah, you couldn't get the bolt action repeating rifle. You couldn't get the semi-automatic hunting rifles, the SAR series. You could get the SLRs. Now, the SLR rifles, as I said, you had a 16.3-inch barrel or the 20-inch barrel. You had a variety of different features such as muzzle brakes. You had side scope rail, which would have been the H designation at the time. And this is where it starts getting extremely confusing because you had other H designations that did not mean it had a side rail. And this is where we start moving a little on from this series. But to keep it in line, we're going to keep talking about this guy a little bit. So this particular one, you can denote it is only semi-unbanned by the fact that it does have its, you know, sling loop over here, so that's been replaced. The other thing denoting that it is only semi-debanned is that it is missing a tang on the bottom. The civilian versions only came in single tang at the time. To, you know, deban it, you add the second tang in. You would have found two different receivers, some already ready for the rivet, so that's all you had to do is press that rivet in and you got your second tang. Some did not have that space, that cavity for the rivet. The most you're going to see in the country is SLR-95s. I was not able to get exact numbers. However, I don't want to throw these numbers out because they were all over the place, but it was very clear many less SLR-96s were here than SLR-95s. Now, I previously mentioned that DIG formed a partnership with Intrac due to the original owners dying and his wife assuming control of the company. Intrac keeping the company going really helped him out, and that's where you started seeing a very interesting series. And you still had the SLR series that would have been the SLR-101. However, at this same exact time, you also had some different bands coming down. Before that band coming down, you had the SLR-101, which was a 7.62 rifle, synthetic stock, unfortunately single stack magazines. So these originally came in with 5-round double stack magazines. However, later on, the 100 series would come around and they would only be single stack magazines. However, you would find them in both a thumb hole with a NATO length stock or a Warsaw length stock. So that's actually pretty interesting. So again, you can find some definitely confusing designations because, you know, for a short period, some double stack SLR 101s did come in, and you can denote that with their, obviously, their designations, which are not going to be on the receiver for some of them. Some of them, some importers did actually mark them. You know, you can tell because it's completely different than the other etching on the rifle. But you would have seen SLR 101 SB and SLR 101 SB1. So the SB, they didn't come in the country with double stacks. They were converted to double stack. However, this did not last forever. Very quickly, they would, you know, have to deal with some ban stuff. And now the SLR was unfortunately banned by name. And California banned it by name. It happens, you know. And that's where you started seeing the other designations like K. Now, the K series is at this point starting to gain popularity. And let me move down my notes here so that I do not fuck you up here. SLR banned by name, and you know, you really only had them working with the stock they had for many, many, many years, but you had other builders and importers that figured out that, oh, they only mean full rifles. So that's when you really started seeing a explosion of the parts kit era. Parts kits had already existed in the country. I mean, dude, back in the 90s, you can go get yourself a Wasser kit for literally fucking 50, 75 bucks, 100 bucks. Now, this started an explosion of parts kits. Now, what did this result in? This is where you start seeing the designation SLR 100 and SLR 100H. That's definitely where it gets confusing when you had SLR 95H. So the difference is this did not mean that it had a side rail. Now these were parts kits that were imported with, at the time, 80% receivers, and were imported by Intrac, these parts kits, under that partnership with DIG. And that's where you started seeing some very famous builders pop up, and very early pioneering builders. Now, these rifles, these parts kits were built under contract for Intrac by a few different builders. Now, I do have a small list here. That would have been MSC, Blue Ridge, Ohio Ordnance, and the famous and illustrious Gordon Tech. Some people know them as G-Tech. G-Tech was definitely the best of all of them. That's 100% true. You had some very, very good builds out of every single one of them, but the Gordon Tech rifles were essentially built exactly as they should. That's an early pioneering build that, you know, was actually good, not some yokel cracking them together in their garage. However, you did have yokels cracking them together in their garage because these parts kits were offered as kits as well. Now, the big deal about Gordon Tech is Gordon Tech, you would find a G stamped under the barrel, and you would find some very, very high quality rifles. Interestingly enough, these first 7.62 SLR-100Hs, that's what you would find, were actually built on a combination of Bulgarian receivers with Hungarian parts kits. So these are not 100% Bulgarian. They're kind of a mishmash, and Gordon Tech made it work. Now, there's a lot of Hungarian AK parts on the market. They're not, they're not the only people to do this. Later on, you would actually see IO, and then even later on, you would see Riley doing this. Building, cobbled together parts kit guns with Hungarian parts in them to fill them out. Now, what's interesting about that is the big deal at the time with the Gordon Tech was that they actually had a testing process, famously the hot load test, where they would actually send overpowered loads through the rifle and, check its head spacing and all that shit, and, check its wear and tear and all that. So they were actually doing R&D as well as builds. That's a huge, huge deal. Really confusing about this being the SLR-100H and having the Hungarian parts is they did not have side rails. So that earlier SLR-95 designation of SLR-95H with a side rail does not apply to the SLR-100H. They didn't just automatically come with side rails. So you're gonna have to figure out, if you have one of those, figure out some way to mount optics on it, add a side rail, get yourself an Atero, something like that, much like I would have to do if I wanted to use optics. This one, I only use iron sights because, fuck, man, this rifle, awesome. Still very interesting at this point. You had, DIG and Intrac and Gordon Tech all involved in making these very high quality rifles. However, there was another company that was actually involved in this, and that's a company called Armory. Armory was an importer trying to get some of these Bulgarian rifles, full rifles. However, the head of Arsenal Bulgaria was not into the idea. He had a standing policy of only one importer per market. So they started getting the parts kits. The parts kits themselves were 7.62 kits, and Armory had prior been one of the importers of SLR-95s. And this is where it gets very interesting, because you have a company local to Texas here. This in Houston that does not exist anymore comes into play, and that is a company called Global Trades. Now, Global Trades was mostly known for their Mac 90s and their Type 56s, and mostly people would have learned about them through either internet forums at this point, because they've been long gone, or if you've looked into the North Hollywood shootout, as they had actually got their rifles from Global Trades. So I actually happen to have an original Global Trades dong here. A lot of people think these were imported. Actually, no, they were made for Global Trades, or possibly even by Global Trades. I was not actually able to get that information. I actually purchased this from a former Global Trades employee. It's completely uninstalled. Pretty impressive. Yeah, you would definitely see these most visibly in the North Hollywood shootout, as one of the rifles involved was a Type 56 with one of these exact dongs on it. So Global Trades and Armory were able to get these rifles in parts kits, and this was pretty much due to the head of Bulgaria dying. So they were able to renegotiate, and that is where you started seeing a whole other series of rifles that was not the SLR-95 and was not the K100 series, which would have been an SLR-95, almost identical, except only with single stack magazines. And here is where Gordon Tech comes back into play. Now, Armory partnered with Gordon Tech, and were able to get a number of rifles built and converted. And that is also where you started seeing a 5.56 version come in. Now, the early 7.62 versions, like I said, you know, a lot of them were single stack, and Gordon Tech had been involved in opening those up to double stacks as well. And they had also been converting 5.56 milled receivers into 7.62 receivers to offer both calibers. Pretty crazy, pretty crazy. So I don't know of anybody doing that before Gordon Tech. So, you know, very pioneering company. This was the SLR-100 series, a SLR-100 series. These were 7.62 rifles and the brand new 5.56 NATO variant. Gordon Tech was the builder for Armory, and exactly the same as the regular SLR series, they came in, with a thumb hole stock to be compliant, because this was like 1998, 1999, 2000. Again, may get confusing. You had the K100 series. This is where you start seeing the K100, which 7.62 rifle, thumb hole stock and all that, and then the very famous K101. The K101 was a fully milled 5.56 rifle. You can find it on Clayco 47's channel, his dream rifle as he calls it. Very, very, very nice rifle, man. Probably one of the best, if not the best, milled 5.56 gun available, period. Built by Gordon Tech off of a 5.56 imported receiver. There were a number of 100% receivers as well as 80% receivers, depending on your years. Now, I was not able to actually get a hard line on which years were which, but obviously they were starting with 80%ers actually, and you know, later were able to get 100%ers after the assault weapons ban ended in 1994. All these arsenals in the early 2000s built by Gordon Tech and various other builders, as well as some, you know, monkey garage builds and all that. You'll find those every now and again. So if you have an older arsenal and things just all jacked up and you're like, what the fuck, I thought these were dope. Number one, look for a G on the bottom of your barrel, and that's how you'll tell a Gordon Tech. I don't know if there's any distinguishing features with the other builders that were involved in the 90s, but when it comes to the Gordon Techs, you could find a G on the bottom of the barrel. So if you were one of the recipients of these rifles that was not built by Gordon Tech and was one of these parts kits, you know, yeah, that's why you might find a late 90s, early 2000s really janky one. It was not Gordon Tech. It was some guy building it in his garage, very likely. So, you know, and this was prior to, you know, commonly available tooling like jigs. So during this time, you also had the SLR series banned by name, and this is why you started seeing the K series. And you also had the reemergence of the SA series. Now here is again where it gets confusing with designations. Now at the time, early 2000s, is when you started seeing the emergence of the SAM-7. The SAM-7 was a designation to get around California's import ban on the SLR series by name, as California was one of their main markets. The reason why this can get confusing is because you had another rifle imported at the time called the SA-M7. Not the SAM-7, the SA-M7. So you'll see some people saying those early SAM-7s were fucking garbage and all that, and then you'll see some, you know, people saying like, what the fuck is up with these things, dude? And like also variants and features and all that, and argue over which ones had which. It's because there was a very confusing designation. You had a SAM-7 and you had an SA-M7. So, like I said, man, you know, buckle your fucking seatbelt, because man, Arsenal, I think it's probably more confusing than Romanian rifles, honestly. Arsenal Bulgaria had a bit of a hiatus when it came to importing the rifle or exporting the rifles into the US, and by 2012 you started to see them coming back in. As far as I was able to tell, I saw multiple different years referenced in multiple different references, but somewhere between 2004 and 2006 is when they stopped exporting them to the US, and all the Arsenals that were being sold at the time were either already here or still being built out of those parts kits. So those ones are where you would start seeing the loss of the designation made in Bulgaria, because they were not made in Bulgaria. They were made here in the US off of Bulgarian parts kits. Now, come 2013, 2014, you started seeing these back on the market. And that's where, again, you would start seeing that SA, M7, and SAM7 designation. Again, actually, I found multiple references that said this was only a thing that happened in the later 2013, 2014. But yeah, you actually did have that designation back then as well. These K101s that I was just talking about, highly coveted. As I said, you can go see the one on Clayco 47's channel. He owns one himself, got a very good deal on it, and he actually says the whole story behind it. So I highly recommend go check out Clayco 47 video. I don't remember the exact title, but it's something to the effect of "I found my dream rifle," something like that. So go check it out. And really, that kind of concludes the era that I really wanted to talk about with the meat of this rifle. I don't want to go through the whole thing. I think at some point I probably should get a SAM5 or SAM7 so we could talk about that, because you have a little bit of confusion in that as well. Now, you'll notice I've been holding this rifle up, has this big cut here, and if you're not an AK guy or possibly a newer AK person, what this is denoting is that this is a milled receiver. That's a lightning cut. So, you know, you have it on both sides here. And it's just to reduce some weight, because this is a 100% milled receiver. Now, these later Arsenals, post 2014, you started to see stamped variants coming in. These stamped variants were not produced in Bulgaria. They were produced here in the US. These are built by K-var, and we know they're never going to tell you when they run out of the Bulgarian receivers and have switched over to American. That's just not their style. They tend to lie. You know, I probably should have mentioned them in the Lies of the Gun Industry video, because K-var, fuck, man. I hope you've enjoyed this little overview of the SLR-95 and a little bit of an overview of Arsenal rifles in America. I think we are going to try to scrape up a SAM5, SAM7 or something like that. You know, if anybody's got an old K100 series or something like that, SA-93 or something like that, I'd love to check it out if I can come over and film with you. That'd be neat. I'd like to talk more about these, because one thing about Bulgarian rifles, these days very overpriced. They're going for about $1,900, $2,000 a used. You know, you can buy, or excuse me, brand new. You can buy used versions much cheaper, and in fact better older versions such as the SLR-95 much cheaper. You know, you'll find fully converted ones over $2,000, but you'll find ones like this that are only semi-converted with a single tang for, like, you know, 1,500 bucks. Still cheaper and a better rifle than a SAM7. So that's where the money is right there. You know, buy used right now. So hopefully we can get another Arsenal or two here. You know, it's a pretty interesting story, because some of them are hit and miss in quality, depending on the year. The US built ones, I mean, they got some problems. I think everybody and their mother may have heard, even the beginners may have heard about this whole gassing thing with them. And it was not just the 5.6 versions. There were also 7.62 versions drilled wrong, you know. Just the number of 7.62 versions with this gassing issue was much lower. Now, is there really anything else I can say other than that? Like I said, they're hit and miss quality when it comes to the US built one. However, the imported milled rifles, all the milled rifles are imported. To my knowledge, they haven't lied to anybody and actually gone to like a tort or nothing like that. But anyhow, yeah. Older Arsenals, very nice guns. The milled ones can be very nice. It's this gassing problem you're going to find with the stamped ones, which are, you know, the made in America ones. guns, because they drill out those gas ports here in the US, and they fucked them up. And when it comes to a 7.62 rifle, if you're a 7.62 rifle person, try to find yourself an SLR-95, man, because a lot of people will say this is the finest AK ever produced and brought into the country, next to, you know, some Polish variants like KBK or, you know, some Russian variants. But as a whole, full import rifle, completely, like, you know, unmolested rifle with just, you know, minor variances in like sling loop and thumb hole stock and all that. There's a lot of people that think these are the finest AKs ever imported into the country. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I haven't fired all of them. I actually don't own a 7.62 Polish gun. A lot of Polish shit. I don't own a 7.62 Polish gun, so we're gonna have to get on that. And you know, I've also heard quite a few of the finer builders say that the Polish kits are some of the finest kits available. So we don't know how those guns were when they were fully produced, because they weren't imported in full. We didn't ever really get the milled Polish guns in full, to my knowledge. I think they were all chopped. Zach Schaefer might be able to answer that question, but in anything I've ever read, I don't believe we ever actually got the fully milled ones here. Might be another episode there. So anyway, I am 55 minutes into filming, and I know I got a bunch of other footage from the range as well. So I think it's time to say it. What do we say? Stay, have, do the.